Let me say what a lot of expats only whisper in private. In the Philippines, you can walk into an immigration office with no line in front of you, get your extension processed in 10 to 15 minutes give or take, and still be forced to pay thousands in express fees. And in some offices now, it's not optional anymore. Even if you apply early, even if the office is empty, and even if there's no express lane to skip, you still pay. That doesn't feel like a fee for speed. It feels like a fee for existing. Hi guys, it's Dee and welcome back to the channel. Before I start this video, I want to be very clear. This video is not anti-Filipino. Filipino people are warm, welcoming, and some of the kindest people you'll probably ever meet. The Philippines is beautiful. That's why many foreigners come here to stay. But loving a country doesn't mean pretending the system is perfect, or if there is a system at all. There are many types of Philippine visas, but today I'm only focusing on 4 visas expats most commonly use. I'm not covering investment or work visas because those get complicated and they deserve their own video. What I'm covering is the day-to-day reality, the rules, the renewals, the hidden tripwires, and the part that nobody wants to talk about. How the system can feel designed to squeeze money out of people who are trying to comply. Let's start with Balikbayan because it's one of the most generous privileges available but also one of the most misunderstood. Balikbayan is usually used when you're married to a Filipino citizen and you enter the Philippines together with your spouse. If granted, it gives you a full 12 months in the country without having to visit immigration at all. For couples, it's a huge relief. No monthly renewals, no repeated payments, no scheduling BI visits. But here's the part people don't always realize. Balikbayan is not a multiple entry visa. It's a one-time privilege attached to that entry. The moment you leave the Philippines, it's void. So if you travel a lot or you need to fly out for work or you just like visiting nearby countries, once you exit, you're back to tourist rules unless you re-enter again with your Filipino spouse. And if you come back without your spouse, you won't get balikbayan. You'll be treated like a tourist. Now, if you stay longer than 12 months, balikbayan can be converted into a standard tourist visa. But again, the moment you leave, the clock resets and the cycle starts over. It's generous, yes, but it's fragile. One flight out and the privilege disappears. Next is the 13A visa. If balikbayan is comfort for 1 year, 13A is stability for life. This is a permanent resident visa you can apply for if you're legally married to a Filipino citizen, and you can apply for it while you're already in the Philippines. The big advantage is that it removes you from the constant renewal grind. You can come and go as you please and you're no longer living in a countdown. But here's why this matters beyond convenience. Living on a tourist status long-term puts people in a psychological loop. You're always thinking, when do I renew? How much will it cost? Will I need an ECC? Do I need an onward ticket again? What if the rule changes? The 13A is one of the few options that stops that feeling of being a guest who has to keep paying to remain welcome. If you're married and genuinely planning on a life here, 13A is often the healthiest path because it's the closest thing to normal living in the immigration sense. Now, the SRRV, the Special Resident Retirees Visa, this is for foreigners aged 40 and above. For former military, it can be exceptionally a good deal. For non-military applicants, the biggest barrier is usually the deposit requirement. It often involves placing a substantial amount of money into a Philippine bank as part of the program, and that's a trade-off. SRRV can remove you from the tourist renewal cycle, remove a lot of the repeated paperwork, and give you more stability, but it's not accessible to everyone. It's a visa that can feel like it's designated for people who can afford to buy stability, rather than people who want to build it slowly. If you want me to make a separate video about SRRV that breaks down who qualifies, how the deposit works, and what people misunderstand about it, let me know. Now, the one most expats use is the tourist visa. Most Western passport holders arrive and receive a 30-day visa exemption. People call it visa on arrival, but practically what you experience is a stamp and 30 days. After that, you can get an additional 29-day visa waiver. This can be done at NAIA in Manila after you clear customs, online through etravel.gov.ph, or at a local BI office. And if you do it online, you need to select Visa Waiver in the menu. Choosing Visa Extension at that stage is incorrect. It sounds like a small detail, but it matters, and the system does not always forgive small mistakes. Now here's what surprises many people. The tourist visa can be extended repeatedly for up to 36 months for many Western nationals. That's why so many expats live here on tourist status. They aren't hiding, they aren't illegals, they're just using the system the way it currently operates. But just because it's allowed doesn't mean it's comfortable. Because the longer you stay on tourist status, the more requirements show up. The third extension is a major turning point because it must be done in person. This is when immigration issues your ACR card, Alien Certificate of Registration. The ACR card is valid for 12 months and can function as a valid ID here in the Philippines. That sounds helpful, and in some ways it is. But here's where it starts feeling like a trap. Even if your ACR card remains valid for 12 months, your visa situation doesn't have that same continuity. If you leave the Philippines, your visa status resets back to square one. So you can hold a valid ACR card and still be treated like you're starting over the moment you re-enter. And the third extension is also when costs jump dramatically, not just because of the ACR itself, but because of the stacking fees, the express fees, the reality that you might have to return weeks later to pick up the card anyway, even after paying express. Now, after your third extension, the fourth and fifth extensions can usually be done online or in person. The sixth extension must be done in person at the BI. This is where they do a mini background check and give you a notice that an ECC or an exit clearance is required to leave later. Not everyone realizes that staying long-term on a tourist visa eventually creates exit requirements too, not just entry requirements. Extensions 7 through 12 can be done online or in person, but once you hit the 13 to 36 month range, the extensions must be done in person every time. This is why expats describe it as the renewal treadmill. Not because they hate paying, but because the structure forces repeated in-person compliance at specific milestones. It's predictable, yes, but it's exhausting. Especially for those in the provinces that has to go and travel for hours to go to a BI office. Now let's talk about the Exit Clearance Certificate, or the ECC. If you've been in the Philippines over 6 months but less than 12 months, you can often process the ECC at the airport when you leave. But if you've been here over 12 months, you must schedule an appointment at a local BI office 2 to 3 weeks before your departure. This is mandatory. It's a background check to make sure there are no local warrants or legal issues before you leave. After your appointment, you return 3-4 days later to pick up the ECC paperwork, and you must show it when you're leaving. This catches people because most countries don't require exit clearance just because you stayed a long time. People assume leaving is simple. In the Philippines, after a certain point, leaving becomes a process too. Everything is a process here. As for the cost, your initial 30 days are free. The 29-day visa waiver costs around 2,060 pesos plus a 2,000 peso express fee. The third extension is, I think, the most expensive one. You usually choose a 1 or 2 month extension. There is a 6-month option, but currently I think it's only possible at the Intramuros main office in Manila, and they're strict about who gets it. The third extension includes a mandatory ACR card that costs $50 converted to pesos, and then you add extension fees, express fees on both the extension and the ACR card, and our total is usually around 10,000 pesos for the 2-month option. Then the fourth extension onward becomes more standard, often around 2,000 pesos plus another 2,000 for express fees, and those express fees repeat over and over. Now I'm going to say something that will make some people uncomfortable, and honestly it should. In the Philippines, corruption and so-called extra fees are not just present. They're normalized. They're baked into everyday systems to the point where people stop questioning them altogether. Sometimes it's outright corruption. Other times it hides behind policy language, technicalities, and loopholes that allow money to be extracted while everything stays technically legal. And that's the most dangerous kind because it's easy to defend and hard to challenge. What happens next is predictable. People are trained to accept inconvenience as normal. They're conditioned to believe that paying more is the way to make things work. They're told about convenience even when there's no actual service being provided, no line being skipped, and no extra effort being made, just people literally doing their jobs. So people stop asking why. They stop pushing back. They stop expecting better. They stop asking questions. Instead of fixing broken processes, the system teaches people to work around them. And if you don't play along, if you question fees, ask for justification, you're labeled difficult. So most people stay quiet. That's why expats often call the visa process a scam, not because it's illegal on paper, but because it's kind of predatory in practice. It feels like you're constantly paying to avoid problems that should not even exist in the first place. You're not paying for your service, you're paying not to be punished. Let's talk about express fees because this is usually the part that makes people angry, including me. In some BI offices, there is no line, literally none. Your extension can be processed in 10 to 15 minutes, yet you're still charged thousands for express processing. What exactly are you paying for? Speed? There was nothing to speed up. And here's the part that's getting worse. Some offices make express fees mandatory, not optional. Mandatory. A fee for convenience cannot be forced. If it's forced, it's not convenience. It's a toll. And here's the part that makes it all darker and honestly more depressing. As a foreigner, you're dealing with immigration, the very agency that decides whether you get to stay in the country, extend your visa, or leave without problems. That power imbalance changes everything. So even when something feels wrong, unfair, or outright abusive, you hesitate. You think twice before saying anything. Because what's the risk? Being labeled difficult, having your name flagged, suddenly facing delays, suddenly being told to come back again, suddenly having your status feel complicated. And here's the truth I need to be honest about. I can't sit and tell foreigners to speak up because you can't. Not safely, not realistically. That's why most expats do what people always do in systems like this. They comply quietly. They complain privately. They warn newcomers in DMs, group chats, in late-night conversations, and sometimes in Reddit, instead of saying anything publicly. It's not because they're weak, it's because the system teaches you very quickly that pushing back costs more than staying silent. And as a Filipina who is also tired of all this shit in my country, this is the part that hurts the most to admit. I don't have a solution for you, and I'm sorry. I can't tell you how to fix this. I wish I could. I can only say that I hope genuinely that the Philippines does better. The people demand better, that we stop normalizing corruption, stop excusing it as just how things are, and stop voting for leaders who thrive on vote buying, patronage, and empty promises. Because until leadership changes, systems don't change. And until systems change, people, especially foreigners, will keep surviving quietly instead of living freely. This is why visa runs exist. One-way flights to Bangkok or nearby countries can be very cheap, sometimes around $50. If you leave every 2 to 3 months, you're set your tourist visa. Avoid ACR costs and avoid needing an ECC. You might spend less money, less time, and experience less stress, and you get to travel. It's not illegal, it's just a workaround that people adopt when the proper process feels like a money trap. Now, onward tickets. If you're flying into the Philippines with a one-way ticket or your return flight is more than 30 days away, airlines may refuse to let you board without proof you're leaving the Philippines within 30 days. So people buy refundable tickets and cancel them or use onward ticket services that reserve seats temporarily. People call it a hack, but it's really just travelers adjusting to rigid rules that don't match real travel plans, especially for long stays. I love this country. I love the people. I love the culture. But I'm not going to sugarcoat the system. The visa structure is often confusing, expensive, and built around repeated payments. And when express fees become mandatory, even in empty offices, it stops feeling like administration and starts feeling like exploitation. If you want more unfiltered videos like this, SRRV deep dives, marriage visas, BI tips, visa run math, or what to do in the immigration, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please like and share my video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll see you in my next video. This has been D. Bye! But just because it's allowed doesn't mean it's comfortable. This is when immigration issues. It's a background check to ensure there are no local issues. There is a 6-month option, but currently it's only possible in the intramuros. This is why expats describe it as the renewal treadmill.